Rian was used to the quiet hum of the mining colony, the sound of drilling machines in the distance, the clink of tools on metal, and the low voice of workers talking about broken equipment. It was the rhythm of his life. Every morning, he would wake up early, walk to the repair station, and spend the day fixing whatever came through the door. The desert moon where he lived was dry, dusty, and lonely. The sky was always pale yellow, the horizon filled with low rock hills. Ships came only once a week to deliver supplies and carry away minerals. Life was simple, and Rian liked it that way. That morning, he was fixing a mining drone with a broken arm when the station's warning siren began to wail. The sound was sharp, urgent. At first, Rian thought it was a drill, but then he saw the faces of the other workers. They were pale and tense. Outside, the sky was filled with shadows. Strange ships were descending, sleek and black, with glowing engines and strange markings. They moved like hunting birds, fast and silent, until they stopped above the colony. Then the ground shook as they landed. The colony guards shouted orders, running to defensive positions. People scattered, looking for shelter. Rian froze for a moment, holding his wrench tightly. His mind told him to run, but his legs would not move. From the largest ship, a ramp lowered. A group of tall figures stepped out. They wore dark armor that covered their bodies completely, except for their faces. Their skin had a faint silver tone, their eyes sharp and alert. They moved with precision, scanning the area as if searching for something or someone. At the front was a woman taller than the rest. Her armor was different, decorated with thin lines of blue and silver. Her long black hair was tied back, and her eyes burned with a focused intensity. She carried a spear-like weapon, though it was clear she could fight with her bare hands if needed. The guards fired, but the tall warriors deflected the shots with their weapons, closing the distance in seconds. It wasn't a battle, it was a clean sweep. The colony's defenses were no match. Rian ducked behind a crate, but a shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw her, the tall woman, standing above him. She tilted her head, studying him. Rian's heart pounded. Before he could speak, she reached down, grabbed his arm with surprising gentleness, and pulled him to his feet. Her voice was deep, calm, and commanding. "You come with me," she said in perfect, if accented, human language. Rian didn't understand. Why him? He was just a mechanic. There was nothing special about him. But her grip was strong, and something in her eyes told him she wasn't going to harm him, not yet. Around them, her warriors were rounding up people, scanning them, and leaving most behind. But she didn't let go of Rian. Instead, she moved quickly toward her ship, pulling him along. As they walked, Rian saw the colony and chaos workers running, supplies overturned, and dust clouds rising from the ground. He wanted to shout for help, but he knew no one could stop her. They reached the ramp of her ship. Inside, the air was cooler, the light dim. The floor vibrated slightly as the engines powered up. The moment they stepped in, a group of alien warriors approached. They spoke in a language Rian didn't understand, their tones sharp, almost accusing. The woman Vera, as he would later learn, responded firmly. She pointed at Rian, her voice low but strong. The others didn't seem pleased. One of them stepped closer, but she blocked his path, her spear ready. The tension was thick, and Rian could feel their eyes on him, as if he were something dangerous or valuable. Finally, the others backed away. Vera pushed Rian toward a corner of the ship where there was a small seat with restraints. She gestured for him to sit. The ship shook as it lifted off, rising high above the colony. Through a small window, Rian saw his home growing smaller, the yellow desert fading into the distance. His heart ached. He didn't know if he would ever see it again. He looked at Vera. She stood near the control deck, speaking into a device on her wrist. Her voice was calm, but her eyes moved constantly, watching the crew, watching him. Why was she protecting him? Why did the others seem to want him gone or worse? Rian's mind raced with questions, but his body felt heavy with exhaustion and shock. He leaned back in the seat, his thoughts a blur. Minutes later, the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars outside became streaks of light. The sound of the engines deepened, steady and powerful. Vera walked over to him. She didn't smile, but her tone was not unkind when she spoke. "You are safe here. For now." Rian swallowed hard. "Safe from who?" She glanced toward the other warriors, then back at him. "From them, from everyone." Her words didn't make sense, but the way she said them felt like a promise. Rian realized something in that moment, whatever her reasons. This alien warrior woman had claimed him, and she wasn't about to let anyone else take him. But deep inside, he also understood being claimed by someone this powerful might be just as dangerous as being hunted. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. The colony was far behind him, and his life had just changed in a way he could not yet imagine. Rian sat in the corner seat, still trying to understand what had just happened. The hum of the alien ship was steady now, the streaks of light outside showing they were deep and faster than light travel. His mind was full of questions, but the one that kept repeating was simple. "Why me?" Vera stood near the front of the ship, talking in her own language with the crew. Her voice was firm, but not angry. The others, however, glanced at Rian from time to time, their expressions unreadable. It was clear they didn't agree with her decision to bring him aboard. After a while, one of the warriors approached. He was taller than Vera, his armor heavier, and marked with jagged designs. He said something to her in their language. His tone was sharp, almost like a challenge. Vera replied without turning her head, her voice calm but carrying a warning. The tall warrior took a step closer. The air inside the ship seemed to grow tense. Rian could feel it, even if he didn't understand the words. Suddenly, Vera moved. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Her hand rested on the shaft of her spear, not in a full attack, but in a way that said she was ready, if she had to. The other warrior stopped, his eyes narrowing. For a moment, no one spoke. Then he turned and walked away, muttering something under his breath. Vera glanced at Rian, as if checking to see if he was all right. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. She gave the smallest nod back before returning to her position. At the front. Hours passed. The crew went about their duties, but Rian could feel their unease. No one came near him except Vera. She brought him food, strange, soft squares that tasted faintly of herbs and metal. It wasn't much, but it filled his stomach. "You should eat," she said. Rian hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" Vera didn't answer right away. She looked at the other warriors, then back at him. "Because they would not keep you alive." Her words sent a chill through him. "But why? I'm just a mechanic. I'm nobody important." She studied his face for a moment. Not to them, but to others, maybe. That didn't make much sense, but Rian could tell she wasn't going to explain more. Not yet. Later. The ship slowed. The streaks outside the window became single stars again. They had arrived somewhere. Rian looked out and saw a massive space station shaped like a spinning ring, with dozens of smaller ships docked along its edge. The alien ship glided toward one of the docking arms. Rian noticed that Vera's crew seemed more alert now. They checked weapons, adjusted armor, and moved with the quiet tension of people expecting trouble. When the ship docked, the main door opened to reveal a wide metal corridor lit with pale blue lights. Strange symbols were painted on the walls. A group of alien warriors stood waiting outside, their armor marked in bright red patterns. The moment Rian stepped out, all eyes went to him. Voices rose, sharp and questioning. Vera stepped between him and the strangers, speaking quickly in their language. One of the red-marked warriors moved closer, trying to look past her at Rian. She blocked him with a single step, her spear angled across her body. The movement was smooth, practiced. She wasn't threatening him, she was warning him. The other warrior hesitated, then spoke again, his tone less aggressive but still firm. Rian couldn't understand the words, but he could read the situation. They wanted him, and she wasn't giving him up. Finally, Vera turned to her crew and gave a short order. They surrounded Rian, guiding him back inside the ship. She followed, her steps steady and controlled. Once the doors closed, she let out a slow breath. Rian noticed a faint mark on her cheek, like a scratch from armor or a weapon. "They wanted me," Rian said quietly, They will keep trying, she replied. He frowned. Then why not just leave me somewhere safe? Her gaze was steady. There is nowhere safe. Not for you. Not now. Those words stayed in his mind as the ship detached from the station and slipped back into open space. That night, if it could be called night in space, Rian lay on the narrow bench in Vera's quarters. She had insisted he stay there instead of the crew's sleeping area. The room was small, but cleaner and warmer than the rest of the ship. He could hear faint sounds through the walls, the hum of the engines, the murmur of alien voices. At one point, he heard footsteps stop outside the door, followed by a quiet, tense exchange of words in Vera's voice and someone else's. Then the footsteps moved away. She returned a few minutes later. Rest, she said simply. Was that about me? He asked. Yes. She didn't say more, and he didn't push. But he could tell every moment they stayed together was making her position harder among her own people. The next day, Rian woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The crew moved quickly, taking positions. Vera entered the room, her armor back on, spear in hand. Stay behind me, she said. What's happening? Boarding party. Not ours. The ship shook violently, and Rian almost lost his balance. Through the door, he caught glimpses of armored figures moving down the halls, the clash of weapons, and the sharp sound of energy blasts. Vera fought with quick, precise movements. Her spear struck with a sharp hum, sending attackers to the ground. Every time Rian tried to move, she blocked him with one arm, guiding him towards safer ground. The battle lasted minutes, but it felt much longer. Finally, the alarm stopped. The attackers were gone, either driven off or captured. Vera stood in the doorway, breathing hard but still focused. She had a cut on her arm, but she didn't seem to notice. They were looking for you, she said quietly. Rian didn't know whether to feel relieved or more afraid. All he knew was that whatever danger he was in, Vera was the only reason he was still alive. By the time the ship was secure again, Rian understood something important. She hadn't just captured him. She had claimed responsibility for him, and she was ready to fight anyone, friend or enemy, to keep him safe. But he also knew this couldn't last forever. Whoever these enemies were, they would keep coming. And one day, they might come with enough strength to win. For now, though, he was still under her protection, and in the cold, dangerous vastness of space. That was the safest place he could be. The alien cruiser moved through space like a dark arrow, cutting past drifting rocks and broken moons. Rian sat in the small seat by the observation window, watching as huge chunks of stone floated silently past. They were deep in an asteroid belt now, the light of distant stars blinking between the shadows of tumbling rock. He had been on Vera's ship for several days. Every day, he learned something new about the crew, about Vera, and about the danger that seemed to follow them. He also noticed that the crew treated Vera with respect, but not all of them trusted her anymore. The moment she wasn't looking, their eyes would shift toward him, sometimes curious, sometimes cold. Vera entered the room, her armor set aside for now. We will travel here for a while, she said. The asteroids hide us from the others. The others? Rian asked. Other captains. They heard about you. Rian frowned. Why? I don't have anything they want. Her gaze didn't move from him. You do. He waited for her to explain, but she didn't. She simply looked out the window, scanning the moving rocks as if expecting trouble at any moment. The trouble came sooner than Rian expected. It started with a quiet alarm from the ship's control deck, a deep chime followed by flashing orange lights. Vera moved quickly, speaking to her crew in short, sharp commands. Rian felt the ship's engines shift, pushing them deeper into the asteroid field. Through the window, he spotted movement. A sleek silver ship slipped between the rocks, following them. It was smaller than Vera's cruiser, but faster. They are from the fleet, she said. They will try to board us. The asteroid belt made it dangerous for large ships to fight with long-range weapons. That meant the enemy would have to come in close, and close was Vera's battlefield. Rian stayed near the observation window as the silver ship drew closer. Then, without warning, it fired a grappling tether, a long metal cable with hooks that struck Vera's ship. The metal rang like a bell through the walls. The crew braced for impact as the enemy ship locked itself to their hull. The sound of metal grinding filled the corridors. Then came the hiss of cutting tools. Someone was trying to open the ship from the outside. Vera armed herself in seconds, her spear snapping into place. "Stay behind me," she told Rian. The corridor ahead erupted with sparks as a circular section of the wall fell inward. The boarding team poured in 4 armored figures with curved blades and short rifles. They moved fast, shouting in their language. Vera met them head-on. Her spear blurred in the dim light, striking with sharp, clean hits. 2 attackers fell before they could fire a single shot. The other tried to flank her, but she spun her weapon, knocking one to the ground and kicking the other back through the breach in the wall. The enemy ship pulled away, breaking the tether. The boarding party was gone, either defeated or retreating. The asteroid belt swallowed them again. Rian's heart was still racing when the crew secured the hull. "They really are hunting me," he said. "Yes," Vera replied, her tone calm despite the fight, "and they will not stop." "But why? Who told them about me?" "Word spreads fast in the fleet. Some believe you are worth more than any weapon." That made no sense to Rian, but the way she said it made him think she wasn't exaggerating. For 2 days, they hid in the twisting paths of the asteroid belt. Vera used old navigation routes that only she seemed to know, guiding the cruiser through narrow gaps where even the smallest ships would struggle. During this time, Rian began learning a few words in her language. She taught him simple commands: stay, move, hide, follow. She said it was important that he understood quickly in dangerous moments. He was surprised to find she was a patient teacher. She didn't raise her voice when he made mistakes. She would simply repeat the word and make him say it again until he got it right. At one point, while they shared a meal in her quarters, he asked, "Why are you doing this for me? You could have just left me." She set down her cup and looked at him. "Once, a long time ago, someone did the same for me. I owe that debt, and now I choose to protect you." There was no warmth in her tone, but there was truth. Rian could feel it. On the 3rd day, they weren't so lucky. 3 ships appeared at once from the shadows, one ahead to behind. They moved in fast, trapping Vera's cruiser between them. Her crew tensed, preparing for another boarding. But Vera changed tactics. Instead of turning to fight, she steered the ship toward a cluster of massive, spinning asteroids. The rocks were enormous, some larger than entire cities, slowly rotating in space. Cracks in their surfaces glowed faintly with strange minerals. Navigating through them was risky. One wrong move, and the ship would be smashed to pieces. The pursuing ships followed anyway. Inside the control deck, Rian stood to one side, gripping the back of a seat as the cruiser tilted and swerved. Vera's hands moved over the controls with absolute precision. She dodged falling debris, slipped between 2 spinning boulders, and used the larger rocks as shields. The first pursuing ship tried to follow her exact path but struck a smaller asteroid head-on. The impact ripped it apart in a flash of fire and light. The second ship managed to keep up, but when Vera darted around a slow-rolling boulder, it was forced to pull back or be crushed. That left only the lead ship ahead. It was slower than hers, but it tried to block her escape route. Vera didn't slow down. Instead, she pushed the engines harder, driving straight toward it. At the last second, she rolled the cruiser to the side, scraping past so closely that the hulls almost touched. The shockwave from her ship's engines sent the enemy vessel spinning off course. And just like that, they were alone again. The crew cheered quietly, but Vera didn't relax. She turned to Rian. "They know where we are. We must keep moving." Rian nodded, still catching his breath. "Do you think they'll give up?" Her eyes narrowed. "No, not until they have you, or until I make them stop." The way she said it was not a hope, it was a promise. That night, as the ship glided into a quieter sector of the asteroid belt, Rian sat in his small room, thinking about what she had said. She had already fought her own people for him. She had risked her ship, her crew, and maybe even her life, and he still didn't know why. But one thing was clear: Vera wasn't just protecting him because she had to. She was protecting him because she had chosen to. and that choice was making her enemies multiply. In the darkness outside, the asteroids drifted like silent giants, hiding them for now. But Rian knew this was only the beginning of the hunt. The asteroid belt had been their shield for days, but Vera knew it wouldn't last. The enemy had already proven they could find them even in the twisting maze of drifting rock. Sooner or later, they would send enough ships to corner her cruiser and take Rian. On the control deck, she stood at the main console, eyes fixed on the star map. The glowing chart showed hundreds of dots, planets, stations, and travel lanes. She touched the screen, tracing a faint, almost invisible path that curved away from all major routes. Her second in command, a broad-shouldered alien named Korn, stepped up beside her. "Those are old smuggler lanes," he said in their language. "They are still open," Vera replied. Korn glanced toward Rian, who stood near the back of the room, watching silently. "It is dangerous," Korn warned. Vera's tone was calm but final. "It is more dangerous to stay." When she told Rian about her plan, she explained in simple words. "We will take secret paths. They are far from other ships, harder to follow." "Smuggler paths?" Rian asked. "Yes," she confirmed. "But they are risky. Old mines, broken satellites. Sometimes storms in space." Rian hesitated. "And this is safer than staying here." Her eyes met his. Yes, that was all the answer he needed. The next hours were a blur of preparation. The crew worked quickly, refueling the ship from reserve tanks and sealing unused sections to save power. Vera herself inspected the weapons, checking each one with the same precision she used for her spear. When everything was ready, the cruiser slipped away from the asteroid belt and into open space. Rian watched from the observation window as the familiar rocks faded behind them. The secret route began near a faint, dying star. Its light was weak, casting a cold blue glow across the ship. Beyond it lay a narrow corridor of space scattered, with debris from ancient battles, broken ships, shattered satellites, and strange pieces of technology floating silently in the dark. The cruiser wove through the wreckage, its engines humming quietly. Rian felt like they were sailing through the bones of history. For 2 days, they traveled deeper into the outskirts. Rian started to learn more alien words from Vera. She spoke slowly, letting him repeat each one. Sometimes she even asked him to say them while pointing at objects, like a teacher testing a student. He noticed something else: she never ate before him. Whenever meals were brought, she made sure he took his portion first. He didn't think much of it at first, but after several times, he realized she was quietly putting his well-being above her own. One evening, when the ship was quiet, Rian asked, "Why do you always look out for me like that?" Vera gave him a faint, almost amused look. "Because if you fall, I fail." Her words were simple, but the way she said them carried a weight that made Rian wonder if it was more than duty. On the third day of travel, they reached a remote system with no inhabited planets, only a single frozen world and a broken research station drifting in orbit. "This will be our rest," Vera said. The crew docked at the station. Its corridors dark and silent. Dust floated in the air, and the walls were covered with frost. It had clearly been abandoned for years, but it was quiet, and quiet meant safe for now. Rian walked through the empty halls with Vera, their steps echoing on the metal floor. He felt uneasy, as if the silence itself was watching them. That night, the crew powered down most of the ship to avoid detection. Rian sat near one of the viewing windows, staring at the frozen planet below. The pale blue surface reflected the faint light of the distant sun, making it look like a giant icy jewel. For the first time in days, he felt a small sense of peace. But it didn't last. The alarm came without warning, a sharp, rising tone that cut through the quiet. The lights in the station flickered, and the floor vibrated under their feet. Vera was already moving. "Warship," she said, her voice low but urgent. Rian's stomach tightened. "How did they find us?" "They followed our trail," she replied. "We must move now." From the control deck, Rian saw a massive ship sliding into view. From the darkness, its hull was black and red, bristling with weapons. It was easily twice the size of Vera's cruiser. Korn's voice was tense. "They are hailing us." Vera didn't answer. She was already ordering the crew to detach from the station. The docking clamps released with a metallic groan, and the cruiser began to pull away. The warship moved closer, its weapons glowing. Faintly, over the ship's comm system, an alien voice rang out in their language. Rian couldn't understand the words, but the tone was sharp-hand order, not a request. Vera's reply was short and cold. She cut the channel before they could answer. The warship opened fire. Blue energy blasts streaked past the cruiser, some striking the station and sending chunks of metal spinning into space. Vera pushed the engines to full power, weaving between debris from the old station to avoid direct hits. The crew worked in silence, their movements quick and practiced. Rian stayed strapped into a seat, gripping the armrests. He could feel every tremor in the ship as it dodged the warship's attacks. One blast struck close to the engines, sending a shudder through the entire vessel. "Shields holding," Korn called out, but his voice carried strain. Vera steered the ship toward a narrow gap between two large asteroids near the edge of the system. The warship followed, but its size made it slower to turn. She used that to her advantage, twisting through tight spaces that forced the larger ship to slow down. The chase lasted minutes that felt like hours. Finally, the cruiser burst free into open space again, leaving the warship trapped behind a dense cluster of rocks. Only when the sensors showed they were clear did Vera ease the engines. The crew let out quiet breaths of relief. Rian turned to her. That was close. Her eyes stayed on the star map. Too close. The cruiser kept moving, deeper into the outskirts, far from any known routes. Out here, the stars seemed colder, and space felt heavier somehow. And didn't know where they were headed. But he did know one thing: every time someone came for him, Vera stood between him and the danger. And every time, she refused to give him up. It was more than just protection now. It was a fight she had chosen. And somewhere inside, Rian began to realize that whatever was coming next, she was ready to face it for him. The alien city was no longer a place of peace. Tall silver towers that once shone under the twin suns now burned with smoke and fire. Strange ships filled the sky, their metal bodies flashing as they moved in fast circles. Sirens howled across the streets. Inside one of the wide stone halls of the warrior base, Aaron stood beside Rena. His hands trembled, but he tried to hide it. The floor shook under their feet as distant explosions echoed. Rena's armor was scratched and bent from the earlier fight. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes still carried the same strong fire. She looked at him. "We must leave this place. They are not here for me anymore. They are here for you." Aaron's heart pounded. "But why me? You are not just anything," she cut in sharply. "You hold something they fear, something they want." Before Aaron could ask more, the hall doors burst open. A group of enemy soldiers rushed in, their weapons aimed. They were tall, insect-like beings with hard shells and sharp movements. Their leader hissed in a strange language. Rena stepped forward, raising her blade. "Stay behind me," she said. The fight came fast. Rena moved like lightning, blocking blasts and striking with precision. Each swing of her weapon forced the attackers back. Aaron crouched low, feeling the air whip around him as energy bolts passed too close. But there were too many enemies. For every soldier Rena cut down, two more entered the hall. Aaron's mind raced. If they stayed here, they would be surrounded. He scanned the hall and spotted a narrow side door, half hidden by shadows. "Rena, there's a way out," he shouted. She didn't look at him, but started moving toward that side, fighting with each step. "Go. I'll hold them off." Aaron hesitated. He didn't want to leave her, but he knew she was faster and stronger than him. Still, his chest ached at the thought of running while she faced danger alone. Then, something strange happened. One of the enemy soldiers shouted a command. The others stopped attacking for a brief moment. The leader looked directly at Aaron and pointed. The soldiers advanced toward him, ignoring Rena. "They want me," Aaron whispered, fear crawling up his spine. Rena's voice thundered in the hall. "Over my dead body." With a powerful leap, she landed between Aaron and the soldiers, knocking to his side. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the side door. They raced through a dark corridor, the sound of enemy footsteps close behind. The walls here were old, made of rough stone instead of polished metal. It smelled of dust and history. The corridor opened into a huge chamber filled with broken machines and ancient carvings. Strange blue light glowed faintly from the walls. Rena slowed down, her eyes scanning the room. "This is the old hall," she said. "A place even the enemy fears to enter." "Why?" Aaron asked, panting. She walked to a large stone pillar covered in symbols. "Because this place hides the truth, and the truth can destroy them." Before Aaron could ask what she meant, the ground shook again, this time harder. A massive cracking sound came from above. Pieces of stone fell from the ceiling. Through the widening gap, Aaron saw the night sky, and something huge blocking the stars. It was not a ship. It was bigger, rounder, covered in swirling lights. It looked like a planet, but alive. Rena's face grew tense. "They've brought the Sky Core." "What is that?" Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. "It is their power," she said, "and if it awakens fully, no world will be safe." The enemy soldiers poured into the old hall, their leader now holding a strange crystal device. The device pulsed with light, matching the rhythm of Aaron's own heartbeat. He felt a strange pull, like the crystal was calling to him. The leader spoke in broken human words, "Come with us, or she dies." Rena stepped forward, blade ready. "He will not go with you," the leader hissed, and the soldiers aimed their weapons at her. Aaron's mind raced. If he went with them, maybe they would spare her. But if he stayed, she would fight until her last breath. "I won't let you take her," Aaron said suddenly. Something inside him stirred, something he didn't understand. His vision blurred for a second, and he felt energy rushing through his body. The crystal in the leader's hand cracked loudly, sending out a flash of blue light. Every enemy soldier froze, their eyes wide with shock. Rena stared at Aaron, as if seeing him for the first time. "You," she whispered, "you have the key." The Sky Core above roared like thunder. The old hall shook harder, and a deep rumble echoed from somewhere far below. Dust fell in thick clouds. The leader of the enemy snarled, clearly afraid now, and signaled a retreat. In seconds, the soldiers were gone, leaving only the fading sound of their boots. Aaron stood still, his heart pounding. "What just happened to me?" Rena placed a hand on his shoulder. "You woke up," she said softly. "And now, they will come for you harder than ever." Above them, the Sky Core's lights grew brighter, as if it had noticed Aaron's presence. Rena tightened her grip on her weapon. "We need to leave this world before it's too late." The old hall's ancient carvings glowed faintly, almost as if they were warning of something far worse yet to come. The alien mothership was massive, like a dark mountain drifting in the sky. Its surface was made of black metal that shimmered faintly under the distant starlight. Inside, thousands of corridors stretched like the roots of a tree, all twisting and turning. Bright lights glowed on the walls, and strange symbols flashed on wide screens. Every corner was guarded by armored alien soldiers. Ren and Cora moved carefully through the shadows. Both of them were tired from the long battle, but they couldn't stop now. Cora's armor was scratched and burned in places. Ren's clothes were torn, and his body ached from running and fighting. Still, they pressed on. They knew the ship's heart, the main control core, was somewhere deep inside. If they destroyed it, the whole fleet would lose its command, and the humans would have a chance to escape. But the alien warriors wouldn't let them near it without a fight. Cora glanced at Ren. "Stay close," she whispered. "This is the most dangerous part." Ren nodded. He trusted her completely now. When he had first met Cora, she had been his captor. Now, she was his protector, maybe even his friend. She had risked everything for him, even turning against her own people. They reached a large metal door with two guards in front of it. The guards were tall and carried long spears that hummed with energy. Cora stepped forward slowly, holding her weapon at her side. One guard shouted something in their alien language and pointed his spear at her. Cora answered with a short, sharp phrase. Her voice was steady, but Ren could feel the tension in her tone. The guards moved closer. Cora struck first. Her spear flashed, blocking the first attack and sweeping the second aside. She moved like water, every motion smooth and deadly. One guard fell, then the other, their weapons clattering to the floor. Quickly, she said, pulling Rin through the door. Inside was a large circular chamber. In the center stood a massive column of glowing blue light, the control core. Round it, several alien officers worked at strange control panels, their hands moving over glowing buttons. The moment they saw Cora, alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed, and a deep, echoing voice spoke in the alien tongue. Cora. One officer shouted. Traitor! Cora didn't waste time. She rushed forward, spinning her spear to block blasts of energy from enemy weapons. Rin ducked behind a console, searching for a way to help. He spotted a small panel with glowing symbols that looked like a power control system. Cora. He shouted, I think I can shut it down. Do it, she called back, blocking to more attackers. Rin's fingers shook as he touched the panel. The symbols didn't make sense, but he remembered watching Cora work the alien controls before. He pressed a few buttons, and the blue light in the core flickered. An officer lunged toward him. But Cora was there first. She slammed the enemy back, protecting Rin with her own body. You are brave, she said quickly, then turned back to fight. Rin kept pressing buttons until suddenly the entire room shook. The core's blue light grew brighter, then began to spark. The alien officers shouted in panic. Cora. It's overloading, Rin cried. Then we run, she said. They dashed out of the chamber, the alarms screaming louder now. Behind them, the core's energy burst in a wave of light. The explosion rocked the ship, throwing them both to the floor. When Rin opened his eyes, smoke filled the corridor. Cora pulled him to his feet. We must reach the escape hangar, she said. But as they ran, dozens of alien soldiers appeared from every direction. The path ahead was blocked, and the ship was shaking violently from the damage. Cora tightened her grip on her weapon. She looked at Rin, her eyes full of determination. I will clear the way, no matter what happens. You must survive, Rin wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes told him she wouldn't change her mind. With a deep breath, Cora charged forward, into the enemy lines, and in that moment, Rin realized she was not just fighting for his life. She was fighting for something much bigger. The storm over the alien city had grown darker. The wind carried the smell of burned metal and dust. High above, warships circled like hawks. On the ground, soldiers marched through the streets, searching for them. Tar stood beside Leora on the balcony of the old tower. The building was half broken, with walls cracked and stones scattered, but it was their last hiding place. From here, they could see the city's main gates and the enemy moving closer. They will come here soon, Leora said quietly, her eyes sharp and steady. Taren nodded. He could hear the distant footsteps, the metal clanging, the deep hum of machines. We can run, he said, but his voice lacked hope. Maybe we can hide outside the city. Leora shook her head. No, they will follow you anywhere. We stop them here. Her tone was calm, but there was something deep in her voice, a determination Taren had seen many times before. She had fought armies. She had crossed dangerous lands. She had stood in front of danger to keep him safe. Now, it was clear she was ready to do it one last time. Down in the streets, enemy soldiers shouted orders. A giant machine rolled forward, its legs clanging on the stone road. It carried weapons on both sides, glowing with energy. Taren's heart pounded. We can't fight that, he whispered. Leora placed her hand on the hilt of her blade. We can. We must. Before Taren could speak again, the first blast hit the tower. The stone shook under his feet. Dust fell from the ceiling. Leora grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the edge. They know we're here, Taren said. Good, she replied. Let them come. They moved quickly through the tower, setting up traps. Leora gave Taren small tasks, tying wires, placing sharp metal pieces on the stairs, setting fire to old oil barrels. It wasn't much, but it would slow the enemy down. As they worked, Taren asked, Why? Why protect me? You could leave. You could escape. Leora stopped and looked at him. Because I made a promise. She said, when I first took you, I thought you were just another prisoner. But you proved me wrong. You showed courage. Even when you were afraid, you spoke with kindness, even when you had no reason to trust me. I protect you because you are worth protecting." Terran felt a strange warmth in his chest. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. The attack came fast. The enemy machine fired again. Breaking through the lower wall, soldiers rushed inside, their boots echoing in the halls. Leora moved like a shadow, her blade flashing in the dim light. She struck down the first soldier before he could even aim. Terran, upstairs. She shouted. He ran up the steps, but stopped halfway to throw a barrel down. It rolled into the soldiers below, spilling burning oil across the floor. The heat rose quickly, and smoke filled the air. Leora leapt from the stairs to the ground, taking on 3 soldiers at once. Her movements were fast and sharp, every strike precise. But more enemies poured in. The battle climbed upward, step by step, floor by floor. Leora fought while Terran used whatever he could: rocks, wood, even broken chairs to slow the soldiers. The traps worked for a while, but the enemy kept coming. At last, they reached the top of the tower. The wind howled around them, carrying sparks from the fires below. The city stretched out in all directions, but there was no safe place left. "This is it," Leora said, standing tall. "Stay behind me." Terran stood beside her. "No, I fight with you." She gave him a quick, sharp look but then nodded. "Then fight." The final wave came. Soldiers climbed the broken walls, their armor shining under the flashes of lightning. Leora met them head-on, her blade ringing against theirs. Terran fought with a metal pole, striking whenever an enemy came close. The air was filled with shouts, steel, and the roar of the storm. One soldier tried to push Terran over the edge, but Leora blocked him and knocked him away. She was everywhere, cutting through the enemy, keeping Terran safe, never slowing down. But they were outnumbered. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, a deep horn sounded in the distance. Everyone froze for a moment. Then, from beyond the city walls, a new group appeared: Leora's people. Dozens of alien warriors charged into the city, their banners high, their voices loud. The enemy soldiers hesitated. Some turned to fight the new attackers, others began to retreat. The giant machine fired one last time before pulling back. Leora's people stormed the tower, surrounding her and Terran. One of them, a tall warrior with silver armor, saluted her. "We came as fast as we could," he said. "Are you hurt?" Leora shook her head. "No, but the fight isn't over." In the days that followed, the enemy was pushed out of the city. The streets were rebuilt, the fires put out. The people whispered about the warrior woman who had defended the tower against impossible odds. Terran stood beside Leora as the sun set over the quiet city. "You saved me again," he said. Leora looked at him, her expression soft. "No, we saved each other." And for the first time since they had met, Terran believed it.